everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this review. The fact that you are willing to sacrifice a few minutes out of your day to consume my content really means the world to me. For those of you that are unaware, I review everything that gets released on the big screen. So if you're ever curious about whether the latest movie is any good, come to my channel and I will let you know. And today we're going to be talking about the new 007 James Bond movie, No Time to Die, which I'm going to be brutally honest with you, is probably my favorite of the series, probably tied with Casino Royale. I think Daniel Craig was absolutely phenomenal in this role. For those of you that are unaware, this is his final performance as James Bond. This is his swan song, and he couldn't have gone out on a higher note. This was an absolutely fantastic movie. Ultimately, we follow James Bond, who's just trying to retire from his life of espionage, but is recruited to rescue a kidnapped scientist, and then finds himself hot on the trail of a mysterious villain who's armed with a dangerous new technology. While the plot or synopsis of this film doesn't sound like anything too spectacular, there are a serious number of twists and turns that I was not expecting to take place within this film, and I was pleasantly surprised by them. I'm busy working on a video essay where I break down the history of James Bond throughout every single movie. And so I've watched a ton of James Bond lately, and this one just blew me away. It was unlike any other James Bond movie I've watched, and Daniel Craig gives such a unique performance as Bond. I've always loved him as Bond. He's definitely my top 3 favorite Bonds, rotating with Roger Moore quite often. But after watching this film, I definitely think he solidified himself as the James Bond in my eyes. It's amazing to see how far he's taken this character. I remember when James Bond was announced, everyone was busy talking about how, we really don't want Daniel Craig as James Bond. They were calling him James Blonde. There were websites and people trying to boycott his films. And we look at him now, and so many people, myself included, look at him as the James Bond. And I think that's a testament to his dedication to the character. And I know that there's been a lot of will he, won't he return for another film, but this is definitely it. This is the last one, and he did an absolutely fantastic, phenomenal job. His performance was amazing. His physique was incredible, and his ability to really physically take on the role of James Bond was so engaging and exciting. You could feel him in those action sequences. You could feel the intensity in his eyes when he was performing. He was definitely the star of this film. But across the board, performances were great. There were several child actors in this film that also blew me away. Every single performance within this film was phenomenal. It was absolutely incredible. And I just sat there being immersed in this fantastic story with these engaging characters that are just so enjoyable to watch. Of course, we have to talk about the action sequences. This is James Bond. And in the trailer, I definitely got some Casino Royale vibes. I mean, I definitely felt like when he jumps off the bridge, there was that parkour element there. And I'll say this, I feel like this film was definitely influenced by John Wick in many ways because it felt real. You had that ultra realism in the action sequences that's very prevalent in the John Wick series, and we got that here as well. And I just have to say, it was phenomenal. So well choreographed, nail-biting excitement. I was seriously sitting I was leaning forward, like, trying to get closer to the cinema at some points. That's how engaging the action sequences were in this film. But yeah, so we've spoken about performances, we've spoken about choreography and action, soundtrack as well. Phenomenal. While we get the generic James Bond soundtrack, it's also modernized to fit this film. I think a lot of the traditional James Bond tropes are modernized so well in this film. The gun barrel sequence at the beginning of the film with James Bond walking past and shooting down the barrel, probably the best one. And I mean, I just said I've watched all of the movies. I've been like watching these gun barrel sequences. And just from the opening sequence, you're like, look, this is a different James Bond movie. But ultimately, this film acts as a vehicle for us to just say goodbye to Daniel Craig's rendition of James Bond. Ultimately, he had the role for 5 films over a period of longer than a decade, from 2006 to 2021. And it's actually sad to see him go. I loved him as James Bond, and he actually held the role for more films than both Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan. So he's been the Bond for a lot of us for a while now, and I will miss him. And I'm very, very excited to see who they're going to replace him with, because I definitely think that they're going to have to bring a lot to the table. They're going to have to show why they deserve the role of James Bond, because Daniel Craig, against all the criticism he faced, he took the role, he made it his own, and he had, honestly, probably one of the most memorable runs with the character. It had its highs and it definitely had its lows. But the whole time, one thing was constant, and that you could always trust Daniel Craig to bring a performance that was powerful. And this was arguably his most powerful performance as James Bond. It was emotional, it was rugged, it was tough, it was powerful. So if you're a fan of James Bond, I would highly, highly recommend this film to you. There were so many subtle callbacks and Easter eggs within this film that I loved. I literally at one point, I felt like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I was like, I can't believe they did that. They did the thing. And it was honestly such a joy to behold and to watch. I will say this, the one negative I can think of in this film is that it's a very, very long film. And I remember when the second act came to a close, I genuinely thought that was going to be the end of the movie. And then the third act started, and I was like, oh, flip yeah, there's a lot of narrative beats that haven't been completed yet. And so I found myself sitting there going, cool, when is this actually ending? And the length of a film is not inherently a bad thing, but I do feel like sometimes the pacing lets the film down a little bit. You become aware that, cool, this movie is actually dragging on. But this film had so much it wanted to say and so much it wanted to do that I'm going to let it slide, because at the end of the day, it was so incredibly exciting and enjoyable. But guys, thank you so much for watching my review. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Give this video a like, and I hope to see you guys again in another review.